How's your Monday morning going? Um, Thanks for tuning in today. It's that weird, awkward Facebook Live scrolling moment. I think we're live now. How's everybody doing? My name is Crispina French, and excuse me one sec. Yeah, my throat's a little dry this morning. My name is Crispina French, and I am a textile recycling artist, activist, influencer, and entrepreneur. And I actually started using used clothing for raw material to make product back in 1980. Well, 87 I started, and then in 1989 I registered my business and got all legit and started employing people. So it's been a while, and I've learned a lot about the different ways that fabrics can be used, about where they can be sourced, and all the kinds of um, intricacies of the used clothing trade, which is it's a very interesting um, sort of segment of our commerce that is kind of a little bit like overlooked maybe, and also it's really interesting, and it's really kind of secretive in a weird way for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. But today there was a question posed to me by one of my followers about the blankets that I make and the edging that I use. So I thought I would answer those questions today. And if you're here tuning in and you're interested in learning about any aspect of the blankets that I make, please feel free to pop your questions in the comments, and I will do the best I can to answer them all. So I'm going to get started with the first types of blankets that I made. And actually, you know what? I have the very first blanket that I ever made in this room, and I'm going to go get it. Hold on. All right, I'm back. So this is the very first blanket that I ever made, and it's from 1989, I think. Yeah. There's probably a date on it somewhere. Anyway, here it is, and it's made out of all recycled sweaters. And if you look really closely, you can see that the stitches that are made with yarn, like you can see over here, the orange stitches here, and then they go down to this kind of burgundy fuchsia color. Those are done by hand. And then the stitches that kind of go between are the zigzag stitches that are done on a sewing machine. So when I started making blankets, I I cut out 7-inch squares, and I stitched them together with yarn and a big needle. Here's my big needle, and just Persian wool yarn that I sourced from a place down in Rhode Island at the time. So then I would make 14-inch squares, so there'd be 2 and 2, and they'd be sewn together in an intersection like that with yarn, and then I would machine sew those together. So that was kind of the first rendition of the blanket construction, and I used ribbing from sweaters to create this fringe on the edge, and that was also hand sewn on this one. And I think that I hand sewed that edging on this blanket, and then I was like, you know what, that's got to go with the machine because it's a long way around. This is a queen size blanket. So then after this one, I started using a machine to stitch on the fringy bits. So it lent itself. So I would cut off the bottoms of the sweaters and just use those for the edging. And you can see that the colors change as you go around. I mean, it's all pink, but it's different pinks. So that was my original kind of look to the blankets, and they were very like kind of, I mean, you can see like it's really mixed patterns. It's all blue and green in the middle. I sold these blankets in a very similar design to Garnet Hill, if anybody knows that beautiful catalog. They were based up in, I think they were in Laconia, New Hampshire at the time. I'm not sure if they're still based there, but I sold those blankets with that fringy edge for a few years, and then I got kind of to a point where I was like, I wanted to clean up the look a little bit and make it look less. People would say to me all the time, "Oh, that's kind of country," and I didn't know what that meant, but it didn't sound like a compliment to me. Country, I don't know. So I kind of changed it up a little bit, and I started using like really regal fabrics for edging. I started using silks, silk satins, and silk velvets, which I still do to this day. So this is a more recent blanket. This one was made just a couple weeks ago, and it's edged with silk. And you can see, do you see the seam right here? So that was from, this is silk that I sourced from a garment that I found in a thrift store. And you can see here there's a couple seams that kind of come together. Let's see if I can put that close enough for you to see it. So that might, I don't know where on the garment that fell, but what I do is I just take, I make this edging 3 inches, 3¼ inches wide, and then I sew it down with the face side down on the back side of the blanket. So this is the back of the blanket, and you can see, I think you can see, there's a seam. This might be really hard to see actually. There we go. So you can see the stitch line that's kind of close to the heart here. That is on the other side. That's the finished seam. So first I sew it down, face side down on the back side, right next to the, so the edges, the cut edge of the fabric, the edging, and the cut edge of the blanket are next to each other, so they're lined right up, right sides together. I'm sorry, the right side of the edging is down, and you're stitching it on the back side of the blanket, and you stitch it all the way around, mitering your corners, so that you can have a really beautiful, nice finish to your corner when you get there. Once you have all your, once you stitched it all the way around the edge with the edging on the back side of the blanket, then you flip the edging over and tuck the cut edge under and then stitch it again. So you have that nice finish. Okay? And this blanket is kind of cool. I noticed that there was a little imperfection in the edging. So I just stitched another little piece of silk on top of it by hand after. So that kind of visible mending that's getting a lot of attention right now in the craft circles is really something that I wholeheartedly support and have used for many years. And I just feel like, you know, initially people would maybe feel like, oh, it's an afterthought, oh, it's, you know, there's an imperfection there, but in this day of all, like everything that we see that's printed, for instance, that comes out of a computer is all like polished and fine, and the fonts are all matched up, and you know, most of the blankets that we see out in the world or quilts are like, you know, striving for perfection, where, you know, humans make things by hand that have human touch involved, right? So it's okay. It's like, it's beautiful, actually. It's like something to celebrate. So I really love the idea of making, you know, you want to have the aesthetic be beautiful when you're finished. So let me just show you this blanket all the way out. So you'll notice there's one square that does not have a heart, but it does have a pocket. Can you see the pocket? Right here. So I try to put a pocket on as many blankets as I can, and you can see the square next to the pocket heart, the pocket square has a couple of patches that are the visible mending technique that I used on this blanket. I use lots of different techniques, so you can kind of see how it looks in whole. So somebody's asking me where I source my silk velvet from. And there is a shop that I found. I actually used to buy it by the bolt when I had a larger volume production. And, excuse me. Whew, took my nose. Whew. Sorry about that. I think I'm like my mom. sneezes come in threes. Um, so there's a shop. I used to buy it by the bolt from a place out in LA called Exotic Silks, and they carry a lot of really beautiful silks. From I would buy their silk charmeuse, which is like a satin silk. And at the time they were making it in like, I don't know, 50, 75 colors. And they would always, I mean, just amazing, beautiful stuff. And they also had silk velvet, and it was also in lots of different colors. And they had iridescent velvets that was all silk. But now that I buy in a smaller volume, I found a store on Etsy actually that is called, I believe it's called, I think it's called Fashion Fabrics. You know, I don't know. It's in my favorites folder, and I just go there and buy it. But I will post a link to that shop in the comments of this episode. So, and just while we're on the episode thing, this is episode number 29 in this 30-day series, and it's just been, it's this time of year is a really hard time of year for me. You know, getting through the summer without all the things that we're used to is something that has been a challenge for me this year. But I feel like having this episode happen every day for 30 days through the thick of that time has really helped me. So thank you for tuning in and sending me your questions and your comments and just being there for me. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Joanne, for saying it's a great idea to add the luxury fabrics. So I just want to show you another one. This is one that's a recent piece that is also edged with velvet. So this is the silk velvet. And the thing that I love about the velvet is not only that it's just such an awesome texture, but it comes in these, like, this color. I mean, it's like chartreuse, but not quite so garish. Like, I think it's called pistachio. So it's just, I don't know. There's just something really rich about that. And then, you know, when you're snuggling up with a blanket and that's like on your skin, it's just really, it's a lovely feel. Especially with the weight of the wool blanket really lends itself nicely too. And oh, let me show you this wool blanket out. It's kind of big. I can't really show you the whole thing, but it's kind of wheat and tan colors with the green and turquoise hearts stitched in with the pistachio colored velvet. And there's a couple hand knits. This is a really pretty little hand knit square. The heart on this one is a hand knit, so I like to incorporate those as much as I can. And spread them around because hand knit sweaters are kind of on the rear side in my flow. Okay, and then this one is another wool blanket, and this one is a silk brocade that I found, also sourced from the thrift store. So you don't, like, when I do a lot of production, and like I do buy new fabric to use for edging, but you know, and I pride myself on making recycled stuff. So it's hard to find really beautiful, high quality clothing enough to make enough edging for the blankets that I make. That's kind of why I buy it new. But this is a beautiful brocade that I found, and again, you can see that there's the original seams are from the garment are in there, and I think this has got two different edging bits on it. So the purple is a silk from like a silk shirt, and then the turquoise and blue is a pattern that's from like a I think it was like a Asian style kind of beautiful little collar knotted button piece that I found. So the other thing that I do when I'm buying the new material, I will cut the edging on a bias, and that just makes it a little easier to add. It keeps it from being, it doesn't pull, like it just lays flatter on the edge of the blanket. It's a nicer finish, in my opinion. It's easier to put down and make it really finish nicely. Let me see. So then there's another style that I do, which is used more for like the cotton blankets that I make. And actually, I use it on the denim beach bags that I do as well. And this is a cotton edging. And this is actually, this type of material is cotton twill tape. And I bought this new as well. And it's a 2-inch wide twill tape that I had custom dyed in the colors that I chose. I think I did 4 colors at once. Sorry, my glasses are reflecting the light in a funny way. Um, so the first thing I do is I stitch it by hand right here before I put it on the blanket. And that way it's folded in half, so when I go to stitch it on the blanket, it's just a one pass. So instead of doing the edging like on the wool blankets where I do 2 passes, can you see like there's the stitch line here and here? Whoops, I'm sorry, the camera's like backwards. So here is one stitch line. Can you see that? That's coming from the front. That's where it's stitched down on the front. So it's a 2-step process, and it's quite time consuming, but it's I think it's really worth it. So for the cotton blankets, I stitch it by hand in half with, I use embroidery floss, and you know, run just a simple kind of quick running stitch, and I can sit and do that for like, I can talk and do it and not really even look at it. And then when I stitch it down, I use a zigzag stitch, and it's just stitched with one pass. So I hold it carefully on the edge, over the edge of the blanket, and the blanket edge comes right out to the hand sewn edge of the hand sewn stitch there, so that it's really in there and it's very secure. So that really holds the edge of that woven corduroy very nicely. Um, and the cotton twill tape I had, like I said, I had it custom dyed, and I did that. I can't remember how long ago it was. It was a while back, and I had to order a lot of it at once. So um, I'm not sure that I will do that again because it took me a really long time to use it all. Um, but it is beautiful, and I know that you can buy cotton twill tape in the natural color, and of course dye that yourself. You could buy like Rit dye even and just dye it yourself, or on a lot of the denim bags that I make, the beach bags, if you look at them in the shop, you'll see them. I don't have one handy here, but um, you can cut cotton binding just like the silk and velvet binding that I cut, which I often do with the beach bags out of upholstery fabrics that I get, upholstery fabric scraps that I get, and then I piece it together so I make like a roll of it, and then it's just ready to go when and I add that on instead of the technique with the hand sewn stitch that establishes kind of like the halfway fold. I add that on this with the same technique that I use for the velvet and the silks on the woolen blankets. Um, and somebody's asking about if the blankets are available for sale. They are. And what I do is I've been there. I think that all of these blankets are on my shop. If they're not on my shop, I kind of like do a little bit of like seasonal stuff. So I know like all the cotton blankets that I have for sale, I think I've only got 3 left right now, are listed in my shop. And then when when the weather starts to turn a little bit, I kind of bolster up with the wool. I have a lot of wool product that I've been working on. And when I say wool, it's wool, cashmere, alpaca. It's like cold weather product. I work on that all year, and then I schedule a big photo shoot, and I take all the beautiful pictures with the help of a dear friend who's an amazing photographer, and then they get posted all at once. And I think actually this year, I usually do this amazing show in Rhinebeck, New York, which is like, it's like my favorite thing ever. Like, it's just such a lovely vibe, and it's just such a beautiful time of year. And the people who go there and shop, and the people who run it, and the other vendors, like everybody involved, is just like super amazing. And it's called the New York Sheep and Wool Festival, and it's located in Rhinebeck, New York. And it normally happens on the third weekend in October. And this year it's been canceled because of COVID. So they're going to do some kind of a virtual event in its stead. But I'm not sure. I don't really know much about their virtual rendition or how that'll work. But I'm thinking that I'm going to do some kind of thing, maybe in collaboration with them, or maybe just on my own, where I'll have like a virtual Sheep and Wool Festival where I can like do an event online and maybe just like show people what I've got and then open the store with all the goods that are for sale because it's really I'm gonna miss it. It's so cool, you guys. The first time I ever did the Sheep and Wool Festival, people had been telling me for literally like years, you got to go to the show, you got to go check it out. Oh my gosh, it's so cool, go check it out. And when I finally did go look at it, I was like blown away by, well, the first time I ever went to the show, I was actually selling at the show. And I had applied and been told that it was very hard to get a booth at the show. So when they called me and said, hey, we have a booth for you, I was like, wow, that's awesome. So I just packed my stuff, went to the show, sold it, set up my booth. And I had been used to doing trade shows in like New York City where booths were like $7,500. And the booth at the Sheep and Wool Festival is like $300. $300, not $3,000. And I could not believe it. I was just like, oh my gosh. Okay, well, you know, if I sell $1,000 worth of product, I'll be perfectly happy. Well, let me just tell you, I far surpassed that. It turned out to be like my best revenue generating event of the year. And I've taught there, which really is amazing and fun, and they have amazing workshops there. So this fall, I'm doing a bunch of online stuff, and the first thing I'm doing, well, I can't tell you too much about it because it's a little bit of a surprise, but I am going to do tomorrow. I have a big surprise for you. Tomorrow is the last day of our 30-day series, and I'm really excited to announce something that I'm trying not to spill the beans about. And in September, I'll be kicking off Potholder Rug Lab. So if you're interested in learning every single thing about potholder rugs, from building your own loom right through to making chair pads to room-sized, custom-sized rugs, the Potholder Rug Lab will be kicking off in September, and I'm excited about that. And I'm thinking about doing a couple of smaller things. The Potholder Rug Lab is quite involved. It's like a 5 weeks thing where there's a new module that comes out each week for 5 weeks. And it's a lot of fun, and it's super, it's amazing. Like what people have come up with is just, it always blows my mind. But I think a couple of shorter, maybe just a couple hour classes would be good to do for